Okay.
Okay, they're coming on. Hi, everybody. It looks like we've got everybody starting to join us here. So we'll give it just a minute. So glad you're going to be here with me for this session. And I want to really make the most of our time together. So I'm probably going to start pretty soon here. I don't think anyone's introducing me, so I'm just going live here for you. Great. Looks like people are coming in. Welcome, welcome. So you're in the midst of you've probably been sitting for a while and watching for a while. So I'll do a little fun stuff with you to just get you moving a little bit too. And so let's dive in. Welcome everyone. I'm Elle Ingalls, and I'm a high performance coach and the creator of the Pressure-Free Method, which is an on-the-go stress management method that you can use anytime in any situation to prevent the release of the fight or flight stress response. So that's really my expertise. I've drilled really deeply on fight or flight, and I coach everybody from 10-year-old little gymnasts and hockey players to 80-year-old mothers of Olympians to nonprofit execs. I mean, just about everybody, every kind of person has come and worked with me from every socioeconomic background, and a lot of people in the health fields too. So psychologists, therapists, physicians. So I'll never forget when I was in my office and I had the mail and I'm going through the mail, and it was a small nonprofit I was running. So I opened the mail, letter from a donor, that's nice. A whole bunch of, junk mail. Well, we're going to set that aside. And then there's the white envelope. The white envelope with this state of Michigan seal up in the corner. So I knew it was the result of my state grant. I was pretty excited because our organization usually got one of the biggest grants in our city year after year. So I was thinking it was going to be pretty good, right? Pretty good news. So I opened it up, and much to my chagrin, it was a letter telling us that, yes, you've received a grant. However, we're cutting 50% of the budget in this category this year. So you'll only be getting half of it. And that night, I just remember how much I tossed and I turned, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to tell my board that we have half the money we thought we were going to get from this big grant. It was not a fun moment. I didn't get any sleep. Had to go work the next morning, just fatigued and stressed to the max. And I only wish that I had what I'm about to teach you back then, because I sort of remember it as this very difficult week, having to inform everybody and then having to start to, okay, how are we going to bring in more money? So, when you're doing your kinds of jobs and positions, there's so many moving parts. And it seems like year after year, you're expected to do more with less. And then we layer all the stressors of 2020 on top of what's going on now. And so I really want to bring it to you today to help you learn how to handle these stressors, how to protect yourself. I really, really care deeply about you. And your organization is only as good as your health and what you can handle. So, so I'm going to bring up my slides here. I do have slides for you, and we will dive right in. Let's hit play. So this is the Pressure-Free Professional, how to up-level your productivity, presence, and patience to enhance your organization's effectiveness. You're going to discover the fight, flight, freeze, or FIB stress response. We'll go into these F words. What stress hormones do to you, how to stop releasing the stress hormones. I'm going to give you my 10-second solution to pressure-free living, and I'm going to teach you some tools, one of which is called the Celebration Ferris Wheel. It's kind of funny. So the stress response. The stress response is your body's natural defense mechanism to muster energy to escape an attack. So we used to have big creatures, fire, other tribes that we had to fight. And so there were a lot of reasons for many millennia that we had to muster up this energy to protect ourselves. But today there are no more saber-toothed tigers, they're extinct, but we've become really good at overreacting to people and situations. And you are not alone. We've created a stress culture, and certainly the population that you serve is definitely experiencing a great deal of stress and trauma. But anxiety disorders affect 40 million adults in the US age 18 and older. That's 18.1% of the adult population. These are 2018 stats. So I can't imagine what the 2020 stats are. And then for children, over 25% of children between 13 and 18 years old are reporting that they have an anxiety disorder. So those are the ones that actually are getting over the mental health stigma and getting the help that they need. There's so many people who still don't even remotely try to get the help that they need. So the pressure-free method gives you tools to improve your productivity and your job performance. It helps you stay healthier, calmer, and happier, and feel empowered that you can truly succeed. We're going to start with the ABCs of pressure-free. So the A's, by the way, we're only going up to H if you were worried there for a moment. The A's are these. These are the emotions that can trigger fight or flight. Feeling angry, annoyed, anxious, afraid, or ashamed. So anytime you feel angry or annoyed, and that's kind of falls on a continuum, like you'd be a little annoyed, and then full-blown angry. And then the same thing with anxious and afraid. Those are similar, but yet they're a little bit different too. And anytime you feel ashamed, it can be for things that happened decades ago, but those little reels that go on in your head about something really stupid you did many years ago, or maybe a week ago, and you can't get it out of your head, the looping that goes on. So any sort of feelings of shame. When we trigger fight or flight, we start exhibiting these behaviors. And I'm being very bold here, but I've done all of this. I've been really bitchy. Maybe you have too. Maybe bossy, blaming, broken, burned out. I was working with the manager of an assisted living home and her staff, and she realized that if she triggered the stress response, and it was usually because she got a call from her district manager that her numbers were off. It was a very large organization, you know, that something wasn't going well. She realized she would go right out and start attacking her staff because she was being attacked on this side. And she didn't even realize it until we started working together and she began to really observe her behavior, especially when she was stressed. We can get really blamey. We can finger point. Well, it's his fault that I don't have my degree yet. It's her fault that we don't have this project done. I used to blame all the paperwork for grants. I really didn't like those, all that paperwork. And then some people feel broken. You can feel all of these. Sometimes you might just feel broken down, like, oh my gosh, I just can't do this anymore, or very stuck. And then there's overwhelm and burnout. And there's so much burnout in the nonprofit field because we're often having to do so much with so little resource. So those are your B behaviors. The C's, these are words that my clients shared with me. This is what they start to feel when they use my method. Calm, confident, courageous, committed to their work. Another C word is competent. They feel really competent. So when you start to trigger this, when you stop triggering the stress hormones, these are some of the emotions you start to feel. And then these start to create success for you. So the D words are decide. So you decided to come on this training with me, and I'm so grateful and I'm so happy you're here because this training has a ripple effect. What you learn here today is not only going to be of benefit to you, but it will be of benefit to your coworkers, to your family, to the clients that you serve, because you're going to have an awareness that most people on this planet don't have by the end of this hour together. So some people invest in, like, work with me and we do the whole course. You're doing this webinar, you're here with me. Determine to live pressure-free, determine to start using what I'm going to share with you today. It then becomes like a daily discipline in the best sense of the word discipline. And then the last word is deserve. I truly believe that every human walking around here, we all deserve to have a fulfilling life. We all deserve to find a way to use our gifts and talents, whether it's in service to others, in service to art, whatever it is that we have deep inside that we can really feel that we deserve to let it all happen and live a really fulfilling life. These are more words that my clients again used to describe how they start to feel: energized, exhilarated, empowered, and enlightened. When I created this method, I have 3 sons. My eldest was 18, and he started waking up earlier and earlier because he was finally getting a real night's sleep. And one morning he came downstairs and he goes, "Mother, you know what? I feel calm and exhilarated every morning now. What is that?" Because he used to not want to wake up at all. He was a typical teen. I don't want to get up, press the snooze button, you know. But because he wasn't triggering the stress response so much, his body was really rejuvenating at night. So he had energy and he was feeling good. So the stress response, you've probably heard of the fight or flight stress response before. And I keep adding F's because my clients give me more to add. But fight, of course, is aggressiveness. Bitchy bossy, you know, we move into that. When we trigger fight or flight, we're going to have one of these responses. Or flight, you just want to run away. You just want to pull the covers back and go back to bed. Or freeze. You may freeze like a deer or a bunny. You know how they just stop and you just feel stuck? You're not quite sure what to do next. But here are 2 other interesting F's that I learned from one from my client and one from a friend. My client who had ADHD, I'm going to say had because she's making a lot of progress right now, thanks to Pressure Free. She said that people with ADD and ADHD, and actually anyone, because I've done this, you'll make up a little fib if you're afraid that someone's going to find out what's really going on with you. For example, if you have a big grant due and you're working on it and your board member or boss or someone says, "Hey, have you finished that grant yet?" You might say, "Well, it's almost done." It's not almost done, but you say it's almost done because you don't want them to know the real story. So you're telling one of those little white lies, like a little bit of a fib. And then fawn. I learned this F from a woman who works with specialists in childhood trauma. And fawning is when we'll over flatter or, over flatter is the best way to put it. So we're fawning over someone. It's like, "Oh, what a beautiful sweater." We're trying to get approval. We want someone to notice us and we want their attention. So we'll like overdo it. So those are the F's of fight or flight. The G words are ones that boost your success. The first is goal setting. I do a lot of goal setting when I'm coaching people. Generous. I really encourage you to be generous with this information. So what I share with you today, if you could share it with others, like teach it to somebody in the next 24 hours. You know, when you teach, you master. So feel free to share. By the way, anyone who gets this, I'm going to make sure that the people in charge of the conference make sure that you get the videos and the workbook that go with all of this, so you don't have to remember it all, and you actually have backups. So you'll have that. I always give that when people come to work with me. So generous, and the other is gentle. Be really gentle with yourself. We have habits of reaction that are decades old. And what I'm going to share with you today is helping you to break the stress cycle, which is stopping reactions that not only you've built in the time of your lifetime, but they can be generations old from whomever you picked up the habit. So be really gentle with yourself. And if you share this like with your kids or coworkers, be gentle with them as they're kind of playing with these concepts that I'll share. A healthy start. So this is going to help get your body in a really great position for learning. I'm actually going to go back on camera so we can do this together. You can see it a little better. So I'll exit that and stop my share. So the first H in the H's is this heart space right around your heart. So I want you to imagine that your shoulders are going out toward the walls. So you're kind of opening up this space where your heart is. Your heart is here. All of this here, I want you to go really wide, which is not what we think about when you're trying to improve your posture. You think like, get your shoulders back. I don't want you to put your shoulders back tightly. I want you to open up and take up some more space. Sometimes we're afraid to take up space. I want you to be big. Loud and proud, just open up. So shoulder or you know, this part of you like really wide. So you feel like there's a lot of space around your heart. The moment you do that, you open up the front of your body a little bit, and that instantly helps people know, like, and trust you better. Your clients, your donors, your coworkers, your family members. When we're all scrunched up or militaried back like this, it's not a very trusting posture, but when you go wide, it's like your heart is open and you can bring more people in. So you want your heart space to be wide. And then with your ribs, like your hips are down on your chair right now, imagine lifting your ribs a little bit up away from your hips. I gained about an inch there. So it's like you're stretching your ribs up away from your grounded hips and creating more space again in the front of your body. So that's going to, again, open you up, and people really trust a body that is relaxed and open in the front. It's really very subtle little thing, but you can play with this and see if it's true. Like, be in a meeting where it's like really tense and you just go wide and relax in the front, and you'll notice there's a little bit of change. The next H are your hamstrings. So this is gonna be kind of funny, but I want you to kind of sit up a little, and I want you to grab your butt. You have permission to grab your butt and pull it back so that your glute muscles are mounting up towards your spine, and you're sitting on your hamstrings or your femur bones, your leg bones. So grab your butt. If we were all on camera, it'd be very funny to watch. And sit on your hamstrings, and notice that it's easy to get up and down now. Like, you don't have to squiddle in your chair. You can just get up and down. So when you put yourself in this position, it's a very active position, but it's relaxed all at the same time. And it protects your lower back. So the glute muscles, your butt, they're supposed to protect your lower back. But we've gotten really lazy with most of the chairs that are not very helpful in this situation. You might have to like move in a certain place in your chair to even do this. So we've been slacking. We've been sitting on our butts. Go back to your butt for a minute and put a hand where your lumbar is, and notice how it's fairly flat. And then go back onto your hamstrings, get your butt behind you, and you'll feel your lumbar. So your hamstrings are cool. If you can start to sit on your hamstrings in your car, at your computer, you know, you're at this conference where you're on Zoom, maybe you're standing up, but if you're sitting down a lot, get on your hamstrings a little bit more. Last is your head. So, you know, we're on our little, I should turn this off. We're on our little magic box all the time. Our heads are down like this, right? We're on our computers, we're doing dishes, whatever it is. And so our head is not going out to the horizon very often. So I want you to take a moment and just look out your window, if you have a window. If you don't, if you have a piece of art or something, get your head up and like look at the art for a moment. It's good for your neck, number one, but also when you look out at the horizon, you're gaining perspective. You're getting a wider and bigger perspective. Whenever you're working on a serious problem at work, take a moment and get your head up and out. Get up and over in order to be able to solve. I'll never forget when my father-in-law was an engineer. I was my husband's girlfriend at the time, and he and I were having a great discussion, and he goes, you know, to solve a problem, you need to be a technology above it in order to truly solve it. And I love that so much. I've used that line ever since, and that thought in my mind, like if I'm mired down in something, it's like I'm in the muck. I can't solve it when I'm in the muck. You need to get up and over to solve it. So that's what the head thing does. Okay, let's see. I'm gonna see what's next here as I bring this up. I think I will share my slides just so you have a nice visual for those of you who are visual learners. We'll go back to the slides here. So those are your ABCs of pressure free. And just kind of gives you a real quick and dirty, you know, understanding of fight or flight. And again, oops, I stopped the share. That doesn't work. Let's try again. And we share, and we hit play. So now I'm going to dive deeply. This is the second part of my talk here. I'm going to dive deeply into the method. And really there's three sections to this: targets, triggers, tools. I'm going to start with targets. And the order is really important here. So, and I'll use a lot of alliteration like I have to make it easy for you to remember. But if you can remember 3 numbers, 9, 24, and 10 seconds. Okay, so 9 hours, 24 hours, 10 seconds. Those are 3 numbers that if you can just keep those in mind, it's going to remind you how important this pressure-free method is. So let's dive into targets first. Your why. Why is this important to you? If you're taking notes right now, I want you to grab your pen and I want you to write down the most important reason why you came to be on this with me here today. Like what is that reason? Is something going sideways at home? Is something tough at work? Is it a 2020 stressor? Like what is it that you need to change or make better? Targets tend to fall into 3 categories: performance targets, health reasons, and relationships. And by performance, I don't just mean being on a stage. I mean anything career-oriented, how you walk and talk and do your day, like all the ways that we perform our day, whether it's making a sandwich, driving to work, whatever it is. So performance targets can include, your salary, your revenue, the revenues you're bringing into your organization, promotions, the knowledge that you have. You might want to learn something new, skills that you have, other pursuits. So it can be at home pursuits and at work pursuits. And then health targets. So less illness, the release of the fight or flight stress hormones. There are 2 floods of them, by the way. When those release, basically they are the cause of all chronic disease. They either directly cause it or they exacerbate it and keep it going. For example, I had eczema. I'm a violinist, and when I was 13, I had my first big violin competition, and this whole hand broke out in eczema. It was so awful that I had little cuts and bleeding and everything. I had to wear little tiny Band-Aids on my bow hand pretty much my entire adult life, until 2010, when I created this method and started using it on myself. It was unbelievable. In 8 weeks' time, my eczema was completely gone. I could never have even put a ring on this hand because my fingers were so bloated and so diseased. And now, I'll show you my hand. Like, I would never even dare do that. In fact, as an executive, I was embarrassed to shake someone's hand because it was so rough and little Band-Aids and everything. So illness, do you have a chronic condition or illness that you would love to have reverse? Do you want a better immune system, better sleep, more energy, better athletic performance, again, less chronic disease, better skin? I used to have the stress acne too. It's kind of embarrassing when you're, 35. I'm 58 now, but when I was in my 30s, I would get bouts of stress acne, probably when those grants didn't come in the way I wanted them to. Relationship targets. So these can be at work and at home. So better friendships. There's a lot of loneliness today. How many of you are actually having to work at home and you live alone? I have some clients that have hardly seen any human beings except like to go to the store. Or maybe out on the trail when they're out for a walk, so loneliness, fewer misunderstandings, improved work environments, being closer to family members. So, maybe you have a couple relationship targets that you want to write down. And then, do you experience any of these? So there are 2 floods of stress hormones. The first are called catecholamines. I refer to them as adrenaline because adrenaline is the big one, and you're probably aware of that, like that adrenaline rush. And these are just some of the effects of the stress response. So it's not a full list by any means, but maybe there's some things on this list. I'm going to pick one out because this happened to me. After my 3rd baby, I thought I had a bladder issue because I had to pee a lot. Well, no, it wasn't. That wasn't the issue. We were just outnumbered, 3 kids and 2 adults. And we were travel hockey parents, like everybody's everywhere every weekend. I was performing in the symphony, like stuff was always going on. I was over anxious. And so when you release adrenaline, your bladder and sphincter muscles relax. It makes you have to pee a lot. So maybe you've gone to the bathroom, you have a big meeting, you've gone to the bathroom, but then like 20 minutes later, you're like, oh, I have to go again. That's what's going on. So most of the things that we feel on a regular basis that are uncomfortable or conditions, they're stress-based. And when you can stop the release of these hormones, things will change for you. Once your body senses that the threat is gone, a second flood of hormones goes out. They're called glucocorticoids. You've probably heard of cortisol lately. So glucose and cortisol. Glucose goes out, and that's sugar, and cortisol goes out. Cortisol causes two things for the brain. It can make you feel anxious for no reason, can give you some negative thoughts, which is not good. It's also your wake-up drug, so it can cause a little insomnia. However, if you've released adrenaline, you need these glucocorticoids to fix your brain cells and your major muscle cells that were severely dehydrated, and basically the power was pulled out of them when you went into fight or flight, because we're going to wick fat and glucose out of the brain and out of these muscles to muster a ton of energy to fight or run away. But then we hit that low after that adrenaline rush, then we have the crash. These glucocorticoids have to go out to fix that. So you'll hear a lot about reducing cortisol today. Do not release cortisol if you've released adrenaline. Our body is magnificently designed. The problem is we're releasing too much adrenaline. We've got adrenaline junkies out there. Maybe I was one of them. Hello, my name is Elle, and I'm a recovering adrenaline junkie. I admit it. I thought I was super mom. Here's a little bonus secret right here. It takes males up to 9 hours to clear stress hormones out of their cells. And it takes females up to 24 hours. Wow. If you've ever heard me speak before, then you know I talk about this a lot. So if a man and a woman have an argument, a few hours later, the man is kind of cool, like he's moving on. Is the female moving on? No, she's still upset. And she's probably going to trigger again. And so now that 24 hours is expanding and expanding. When I learned this, I thought, when was the last time I was actually clean of my stress hormones? So I'd ask this question. When was the last time I went 24 hours without feeling angry, anxious, annoyed, or ashamed or afraid? Well, I started to cry because it's never happened in my memory. Maybe age 2, I don't really know. So I'm laughing so that I'm not crying. This is really huge. It shares a lot about gender differences and why, like if you're working with a male or a female, you've got very different approaches to stress and what's actually happening. So this is super powerful information. That's why I said 9 and 24, those are those two numbers. This can provide you with a knowledge, you know, if you're working with a client who's a female and she seems to always be in the stress response, it's biological. By the way, when I shared with one of my clients, she was 12 years old. She'd been in chronic anxiety for 2 full years and nothing was helping. And her father engaged me to work with her. When I told her that the second flood of hormones can make you feel anxious for no reason, she looked at me, she goes, so Elle, you're telling me that I'm not really crazy? And I'm like, yes. And she goes, I think I can do this. I go, I know you can do it. And in 2.5 weeks, of all my clients, she was the fastest to break the stress cycle. In 2.5 weeks, she went a full 24 hours without triggering. And it was so cool to see the transformation, like see a real, genuine smile on her face. It's like, she was so determined because her target was to feel happier. Yes, she wanted to become a graphic designer. Yes, she wanted to live in California someday and all these dreams she had. But the biggest dream she had was to simply feel happier. So cool to watch her break that stress cycle. And it was enlightening to her, that one of those E words, that she could control her biology. So a lot of the anxiety that we feel today, it's the biology is driving it. And if we can understand our biology, and if we were all together right now, like I'd ask you, what does stress do to you? Everyone would have a different response. For some people, it's real head-centered. I get headaches, I grind my teeth, my head pounds, I tense my shoulders. Some people, it's the chest palpitations and the throat closes and it's all tight here. And other people, it's the gut. I'm so nauseous. I have IBS, I have this, I have that. I have to pee a lot, like lower centered. But we're all really unique and different. The one thing we all have in common is that when we trigger fight or flight, we are now in the stress cycle, and we've got to break that. So the only way to stop stress from messing with you is to stop the stress cycle, and Pressure Free is going to show you how. So you've got your targets, you know what you're aiming for. That's powerful because that's your fuel. Step 2, triggers. This is your what. What makes you feel angry, anxious, annoyed, or ashamed? And of course, any kind of fear. So afraid is in there too. What triggers you? When do you tend to overreact? What or who makes you overreact? I remember I was working with a high-level client, a high manager of a company, and she said, I just have to walk down the hall, and if I see my boss, I trigger. So it can be a person. And sometimes it's the people who love us the most, our own family members, that will trigger over things. How long they take a shower, for example. What makes you feel annoyed or angry? What do you worry about? Who or what makes you feel anxious? What are you ashamed of? This is where you're gonna, do you see all the A words in here? That's how you're gonna figure out what's triggering you. So what do you argue about? And I want you to pause for a moment, because we can justify and rationalize feeling anxious and angry and annoyed about a lot of things. But I want you to ask yourself, if it causes this much damage, is it really worth it? If it causes that much damage in a relationship, is it really worth it? And health-wise, and then your ability to perform, because your hands are all sweaty and your throat is kind of closing and you're not speaking very well and they're expecting you to. So is it really worth it? I want you to get real big for a moment. Let's pull on our big girl and boy pants, okay? Do you cause others to trigger the stress response? And because of your clientele, a lot of people suffer from secondhand stress. People in the helping fields. We suffer from secondhand stress because we vicariously experience what other people are going through, and we bring that home even though we try not to. And so you could be triggering because of what someone else is going through, what you're observing. But for this particular slide, I really want you to consider, are you causing other people to trigger? Well, I raised my hand. I can pinpoint many, many, many times when I did, by complaining, by meddling, by blaming other people for things and shaming them, and then also causing other people to struggle, like when it really shouldn't have happened. This picture right here is people fighting over money, which is one of the biggest stressors that we have. Now we have 2020 triggers. COVID-19, working from home, limited movement, fear of the future, fear of the illness and loneliness, racial injustice, lack of understanding, afraid to speak, and other fears. I have a friend, a really good friend, she and her husband are from China, but they've lived here like 17 years. When COVID-19 hit, her son was being bullied at school. Like, it was not very nice. And she texted me, she goes, what can I do? What can I do for him? It was really a lot of struggle going on with racial injustice on many different fronts right now. Violence, fires, storms, politics, election anxiety. 2020 is like, there's just a whole new layer of various triggers, and some may really be important to you. Last night, I had COVID-19 anxiety. Like, I have two friends, a family that I've coached. They're my clients. His parents are both in the hospital right now. So, we all have a story. We all have something, and we love people. We care about people, especially in the roles that you have. So let's dive into step 3. I'll keep myself on time here for you. Tools, your how-to, the 10-second solution. So I said 9 and 24 hours and then 10 seconds. What can you do in a 10-second window to prevent the release of the stress hormones? From the time your body starts to feel one of those emotions, you have about 10 seconds before the heart rate can charge up high enough and the adrenal glands release that first cocktail of hormones. I do call it a cocktail because you're now under the influence of drugs you released inside of yourself. So what can you do in that 10-second window? You just asking that question is going to give you some cool answers. I have created over 40 tools in my courses, but we're just going to have a couple today for you to get started. They come in 3 types: body tools, mind tools, and life design or big picture tools. And today I'm going to come off camera and just teach you a couple tools to get you started right away with this method. So let's see, I need to find you. Here you are. So what tools are we going to use in that 10-second window to prevent the release, the fight or flight stress response? So let's go back to the method. Targets, triggers, tools. Let's take a real life example for a moment. So let's say you're watching the news. Wait, let's say that your target is that you want to sleep well at night. And you're watching the evening news and some troubling news comes on that really affects you, feel a lot of empathy or sympathy or something's going on there, you're very connected to it, but it's out of your control and you feel yourself tensing up a little bit. So I want you to become super weird. Remember when we went wide? Heart space wide? Are you on your hamstrings? Like, get yourself positioned again. Get in that really good position. Okay, when you start to go into fight or flight, we usually tense up a little bit because we want to protect ourselves. We want to protect ourselves from this attack. So we'll coil up, we'll protect ourselves. Maybe your face is going to get tight. Like, do you have a lot of furrows here? That's a sign that you've probably got a lot of triggers going down. And can you go tight? There, I can't do it. Are you clenching your jaw? You know, what's going on here? Notice where your tension is, because that's a clue that you're going into fight or flight. So, okay, we're watching the news. I'm starting to tense up. My husband, I can't let my husband even listen to the news because he just goes, it's like an instant cranking up, right? So, remember your goal is you want to sleep well. It's the evening news. You're starting to get tight. What can you do in this 10-second window to not go under the line, not trigger these hormones that are going to keep you up all night? There are a lot of things you can do. Here's a couple body tools. I want you to take your hands and place them on your belly and relax your ab muscles. So you might look a little or feel a little fat right now. It feels like I'm carrying twins, to be honest. But go ahead and tighten again and then relax. There's a lot of space down there, right? Go ahead and tighten again and then relax. When your abs are tight, you're primed to trigger fight or flight because we tighten the front of our body to protect our most precious organs from attack. Those muscles are strong and tough. So we tighten those to protect ourselves. We also tighten these muscles, which is why it may feel like your throat closes up. And it might get a little hard to talk. It's because we're going to close these muscles up and tighten here because this is like a lethal blow. If you've taken any self-defense course, you know that's a dangerous place right there, right? So this is going to get tight too. Your whole front of the body is going to get tight, which is why I taught you that H to go wide. And now soften your abs. You probably even saw my face change. Like, I'm going to go tight again, and then I'm going to go wide. So it's fun to play with that. Look in the mirror, okay? Start loving yourself in the mirror and start going wide with your features, going wide with your body. Take up more space. By the way, if your shoulders go wide, you'll start getting a little more of a waist, okay? And then relax your abs. I know it feels weird, and we've been taught to tighten our abs and walk around like that all day. Maybe you have a personal trainer who tells you to keep your abs tight all the time. You can't breathe properly if your abs are tight. So give yourself some moments in the day, especially when you're breathing in, so that you can actually take an abdominal breath. Okay, when you relax your abs, so we're watching the evening news, it's getting a little tense, and you're relaxing your abs, you just told your brain, it's a neuroscience trick, that you're okay. Now your brain's like, oh, you're not under physical attack. There's no reason to overreact to someone on a screen trying to get you to overreact. By the way, the media keeps us locked in because they keep us overreacting. It's like, no, you're bigger than that. And you know what? You deserve a fulfilling life, and you deserve to have a beautiful night's sleep tonight. And nothing on any screen should take you under. So keep your abs relaxed. Simple tool. Another little simple tool you can use is to smile. When the corners of your mouth go up, okay, just a little smirk, a little bit of a smile, you actually release a chemical called dopamine. And you may be familiar with dopamine. It is one of the feel-good drugs. It's also a drug that is involved in addiction. However, dopamine is one of the most key neurotransmitters that allows you to think and remember, allows your hippocampus to work, and your whole cortex. When you go into fight or flight, your brain depowers. That's why let's say we were all together and like we met each other in the hall, we got to shake hands and like see each other, right? And then 5 seconds later, like, oh crap, what's his name? What's her name? Like you forget the name right away because we have this little bit of social anxiety. So our hippocampus isn't working very well. If you have children or grandchildren who have test anxiety, or maybe you had test anxiety, you were nervous for tests, you know they know so much, but if that hippocampus can't work for you, you won't remember. That's what test anxiety is all about. And then this whole cortex here. So making good decisions in the front, executive function. Also, there's 2 areas of the brain that are involved in willpower. That shuts down in fight or flight, which is why you may choose to partake with some comfort food or beverages that maybe aren't that good for you or other things. It's because you're trying to comfort yourself and you have no willpower. So this all shuts down when you go into fight or flight. All we're supposed to do is be in our survival brain. Fight or run away, or freeze, or make up a little lie, or over flatter. So we're not being our real self. I remember I was working with a young person who said, oh, Mrs. Ingalls, you helped me find the true me. Oh my gosh, it was just like incredible to hear that. I feel that way too. It's like I was living as a stressed person for so long. I didn't even know anything else. I thought it was normal because you look around and everybody's pretty stressed. So that's just normal, right? It's not how we're supposed to live though. I don't believe that. I really put my stake in the ground to say it's not okay. No matter how stressful your job is, it's not okay for you to be stressed. You deserve to be healthy. You deserve to be fulfilled. You wouldn't be doing what you're doing if you didn't care, right? So, more tools. We did relax the abs. We did a smile. I'm going to give you this one it's popping up in my mind to share it. So again, take your hands, and this is especially good if you're a nail biter or you chew your cuticles or you maybe you click pens. I hate the click penners, right? You know, you got something, or jiggle your leg. You got something a little nervous going down. By the way, when I have someone who has it, like, it's okay. Those little nervous things are wonderful because they're going to clue you in that you're starting to get a little hyped up here. So if you start to, you know, chew on, start to go for this or whatever it is you do, that's a little, I pick my cuticles, that's my thing, right? If I start to go here, I'm like, oh, what's happening? Take your 2 hands, put them on the tops of your thighs and go down towards your knees. So gently stroke down towards your knees, pick the hands back up and start at the top and go down again. So don't rub up your legs, rub down them, down the front of them. If you do that, it's like an instant self-soother. You're soothing your nervous system because your nervous system has a directionality. So if you have a dog or cat, if you don't, you know, you have friends who have dogs or cats, you know, if you pat a cat or a dog, you pat their fur the wrong way, they don't like that. They bristle, right? So that's how we are too. If you go down the tops of your legs, it's like going down the correct way on the dog or cat. They like that. They like it when you soothe them that way. The other thing, take a good look at a dog or cat, and you'll notice that their abs are very relaxed. Their heart space is usually quite wide and open. They're breathing well. It goes down into their abdomen easily. And also, the only time their tail is tucked and they're tight is when they're afraid. Otherwise, their tail is wagging behind them. So right now, are you sitting on your tail? Or did you sit on your hamstring so your tail, if you had one, would be out behind you and big and bushy? So that's another clue that you're sitting the right way, but it's also a really cool thing to just kind of observe and make sure you're stroking your legs down. It's instant soother for you. Another tool I want to share with you, and this is really apropos for work, and especially if you're working from home as well, like everything is blending. I'm working with one company right now, and they said it's very difficult. Our people are working longer hours because they feel like it's all getting too blended. So this is a tool to help with that. I call it the double yellow line. So I want you to take a look at all of the activities in your day. And when you start to feel a little bit of tension, a little bit of stress, one of those emotions trying to happen, I want you to pause and take a look at your day and realize that you are right here right now. For this hour, I am just right here with you. I don't even know what happens next. I am right here with you, completely present in this moment. And then when I get done this, I'll be doing the next thing. And then there's another set of double yellow lines, and then I'll be having dinner with my spouse. And then another set of double yellow lines, and then I will be coaching clients today. Like, what are all the things that you're doing? The double yellow line, just like when you're driving down the road, means you can't pass. You got to stay in your lane. So by staying in your lane allows you to be very present, which is one of the promises I gave you for this webinar, like really present, so that people feel like you are hearing them and you're seeing them. One of the biggest problems we have in this century is that people don't feel heard and they don't feel seen. And that's one of the reasons for some of our biggest problems today. And it's because everyone is in a hurry, and when you are adrenalized, you cannot hear and you cannot see. Everything's a little off and you can't hear very well. You're rehearsing what you're going to tell the person instead of actually listening. Does that make sense? So I'm only saying this because I know I used to do it, right? I would be rehearsing the most perfect line to follow up with the person who was talking to me. It's okay to pause and say, I need to think about that for a moment. So double yellow line really helps you keep a little more compartmentalized. If you start worrying about something happening in your future, see if you can use the double yellow lines and pull back in and be right here, right now. You'll be far more productive. You'll be more present, and you'll start to become happier too. We often negative fake worry. We don't know what's going to happen over there, but we're already worrying about what's going to happen next. And then we'll come over here and we'll beat ourselves up about what we did in the past. So nope, you're just right here. Here's another cool way to use double yellow line. I was working with a young girl. She was 10, one of my youngest clients. And on her way, her goal was the 2020 Olympics. It would have been this year. 2020 Olympics. And so she had 2 double yellow lines. She painted them on her wall and had the Olympic rings over the top. And here's what this means. All of the things she was doing inside the lines would get her to the Olympics. The things outside the lines were not so good. So Halloween comes along. How much Halloween candy can she actually eat if she's on this path, right? Maybe 1 piece, right? If she was really honest with herself. So it was just the coolest thing to watch a 10-year-old decide like what goes in here and what's out here and what's going to get her there. Fast forward, she was 13, 14, and she had to have, I think, 4 different surgeries on her elbow. it was just destroyed. Nothing was working. They were taking pieces, body pieces over other, like trying to make it happen. And so this girl didn't give up. She went from gymnastics to becoming a trampoline artist, and is now ranked nationally. Like she learned a brand new sport, and like, boom, it was just so cool. So she didn't give up, even though, you know, this wasn't going to happen. She was one of those girls that, you know, doesn't go to normal school, was tutored and the whole deal. So double yellow line, have some fun with that. When I taught this to one of my business clients, he said who's an owner, business owner, for the first time in 20 years, he actually had dinner with his wife. He noticed her. He tasted the food. Like, he would just eat and be thinking about work the whole time. And so he's like, nope, I'm going to double yellow line my time with my wife. You should be able to enjoy your free time, right? But I know what I'd be worrying about my board meeting. I wouldn't even be present with my kids. Like, I'm just worried about my board meeting tomorrow. It's got to be perfect, right? So watch for that. Double yellow line is a very helpful tool for that. I want to give you your starter tool, and then we'll have a little bit time for questions. So if you have a question already and you know that, you can go ahead, and I think you can raise your hand, and I'm going to be able to see that, or someone's going to be able to see that for me. Celebration Ferris wheel. This involves 3 types of tools: a gross motor motion, the smile, and the posture. So I want you to get out of the hamster wheel. You're running, and it's tiring. I want you to get out and around behind it and turn it into this beautiful little Ferris wheel. And I want you to give it a push. So when you push that Ferris wheel, it's spinning beautifully. And the spinning is a metaphor for the energy of your life. Because every time you break the stress response, you just gave yourself quality time. Quality time right now, and quality life at the end of your life. Like, you made a qualitative difference when every time. Now, if you push the Ferris wheel and you still feel your face turn red, or your hands get sweaty, or whatever happens to you when you go into the stress response, I still want you to celebrate, because you saw a trigger and you did this crazy thing. And the next time that trigger comes along, you'll probably be able to stop it. It's silly to do, so you'll smile, so the dopamine will flow. And go ahead and push with me. And now bring your arms down to the sides, out like this. And by the time they come all the way down, you'll notice that your ribs have been lifted and your heart space was open. So it's also a posture tool. So play with the celebration Ferris wheel. And now we have a few minutes if anybody wants to pop in with a question for me. So let's see, I think if I look at my attendees. So yeah, let's see, I can see your names now. Okay, yes, I see one. Go ahead. I'll allow you to talk. And I will unmute you. Hello?
Okay. I was just wondering if, because this is being recorded, if we would have access to this recording and where that access would be, just in case we want a refresher on this.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I'm just gonna let everybody know, anyone on here, if you want to get deeper videos and a workbook that goes with what I've shared with you here, just go ahead and email me at elle@pressure-free.com. So l@pressure-free.com. And I'm happy to send you a bunch of stuff too. So thanks for that. Other questions? I threw a lot of stuff out at you. Like, I'm curious too, like, what's your chief F? What's your chief A? Do you get angry? Do you get aggressive? Do you want to fight? No questions?
We're at the last 5 minutes, Elle.
Okay, great. I see Tim. Tim has one here. Hi, Tim.
Question about things over which I have no control that I get angry.
Okay. Anger over things you have no control.
Yeah.
So what you can control is your body, your own physical body. So in that moment, when you start to feel that anger coming on you, I don't want you to stuff it down, because that can create a lot of negativity. I want you to notice it, and then really deeply choose that you are more important than this thing you cannot control. your health and your well-being is more important. You're making a conscious choice in that moment. Like every moment we're making these little choices. And I would go straight to my abs. Because when I get angry, I definitely tighten there. I tighten my face too. But I would go right to my abs and see if relaxing your abs doesn't help give you that moment to say, you know what, this thing is not worth me blowing my stack. It's just not worth it. And then you can also do something I call asking an empowering question. Question that powers your brain for solution. How can I stay cool here? What can I do to make this better? What do I have control over? So you'll hear this all the time, that you have control over your response. You won't have control over your response if you've triggered the stress response, though. It's too easy to just keep blowing it. So that's why I'm really keen on breaking the whole stress cycle. I work to help people break it for the whole 9 hours, the whole 24 hours. Now you're thinking straight. So probably that anger is because it's hard. It's already hard. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Cool.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Any other questions? So cool. I'm seeing all your names here. We've got Amanda, Ann, Braden, Brent, Brooke, Kenny. Oh, I see they're in alphabetical order, right? Who else has a question here?
Hey, Elle, to just jump in on the question on where we're going to be able to find these videos for all of the presentations that are happening. They will be on the housing.utah.gov website, and it will be under the homeless. There will be an email going out with that information too as well, just so our listeners know that.
Wonderful. Super. Okay, we've got a couple more minutes if anybody has a question. Question about kids. Is anybody like having to homeschool kids and work? And there's a lot going on today. So I just wrote, I'm hoping it's all good on Amazon. My first time ever launching something on Amazon. I have a new book, Pressure-Free Parenting. I went deep into parenting because I had clients ask me to do something on that. So, okay, well, let's see. Brooke has a question. Hi, Brooke.
Hi, I'm not a mom, but I manage people. And so one thing is I take on, so I have my own stress, but then I seem to take on other people. So do you have any advice about that?
I do. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because I'm sure there's so many people here on this call for whom you're serving others. And so you'll take on those other stressors. If you have someone who's going through something, like my clients whose parents are both in the hospital right now, here's my go-to. Instead of empathy and sympathy, it's going to sound a little wonky, but
Okay.
stay with me. Instead of empathy and sympathy, I want you to go straight to assuming success for that person through prayer, through positive thought, through full belief that whatever it is they're going through or experiencing, they can come out the other side in a positive way. When you can have that kind of energy for whatever their problem is, it's amazing what can start to happen. Most of us go tight when there's tension for someone else. I want you to do the opposite. I want you to go wide and open and be in full belief that you can help them, that they can help themselves, and that you can get to solution. And keep asking empowering questions for solution.
Thank you.
I do that all the time. I do it all the time, especially having children, anybody that you care about. It's like, I had one client really struggling with something, and I was starting to think about them when I went to bed, and I'm like, full positivity, like full belief for them, full belief that they could overcome, and they did. I knew they could, so that's a cool thing to do. Thanks for bringing that up. That's a good question.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Well, I'm going to close out. I actually think about affordable housing and home because I gave a talk at a conference a year ago up in Park City, and this was a little gift that Tara Rollins gave me. She sent it to me when it came in the mail, and I keep it in my office because I'm kind of new to learning about this with you, and I've worked with a few clients now, and I'm so excited to know more, and hopefully do some things here in Michigan too. I'm in Michigan, but it's really my pleasure to be working with all of you. So thanks so much. Bye.
Thanks, Elle.
Bye.
Thank you. This webinar will now be closed.